but the reality of it can be very, very frightening when you literally lose your whole identity dissolves, an ego
Mhm.
death. And it was true terror.
What did it feel like? Did it feel like you melted into space and lost your body, or
No,
just trying to kind of?
what I was experiencing was I had tunnel vision, and I literally could see and feel. So it felt very, very, again, visceral, that I was literally creating my mind, my perception was creating reality. And so it was like, here was this little thing that's real, and it only exists like a torch, like lighting up something. And then nothing around it was just nothing, nothing, absolutely nothing.
So, hello, hello. Welcome to the debut episode. I'm Vera and I'm joined by Jonathan. And I've completely ambushed him with this recording right now because the whole point of it is to explore perspectives, and that's best done organically. So I hope we can have a conversation.
Wonderful. Looking forward to it. And well, I didn't know it was, it's the first one then, is it?
You're my debut
My
guest.
debut. Wow. I'm
Yeah.
honored. Thank you.
It's funny. I've been working on this for 6 months, and I've had a couple of test recordings already. And um, as you approached me, you said, "Okay, so when do we do it? In 2 weeks' time?" I thought, "Sure, I think we're ready now." So this is going with the flow at its finest. Um,
Yeah, here we go.
uh,
First
yeah,
for me as well. First for me as well. So yeah, let's see.
let's see. I mean, maybe just to set the scene, I first met you in an acupuncture type of setting. Um, at a point in time, just when everything was kind of falling apart in my life, and I figured out, okay, self-care is a thing. Let's start with acupuncture. Let's see what these meridians hold. And I had absolutely no idea around what these sessions would be like. Yeah, from these sessions onwards, I kind of kept thinking, I want Jonathan to be my friend. He's interesting. He's a lot to say. He's so much more than an acupuncturist. And I think that's sort of what I wanted to start today with. Just let's both have a conversation about our perspectives, how we arrived there and how they intersect, but also how they might have shaped your life. Would that be okay? Or is that
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, happy to talk about myself all day long.
excellent? So, yeah, I mean, last time we spoke, we ended on this question of how did you arrive where you're at now? Which I guess right now would be Devon. You're based in.
Yeah, living in Devon, just outside Newton Abbot. The honest answer to that is I have no idea. It's all a mystery, and then within that is, of course, various twists and turns and decisions and unexpected events. I guess like we all have in life, and the the training in the Chinese medicine has been a great foundation for the the I guess the yin yang perspective, the Taoist perspective, and to being able to drop into that lens when it is appropriate, because it's not necessarily always appropriate. I very much have this felt sense that is arriving more and more and more that we're not doing this. It's unfolding. Life's unfolding. We're participating in it somehow. And it is an adventure, and it's full of wonder, and I love it. So, and I think that's one of the things I'll keep coming back to is it's the experience, just which is a relationship, and developing and continuing to develop this relationship to life, whatever that means, and embodying it. So that's a
Mm,
that's some kind of an answer, I
that's a good start. I mean, I really have thrown you in at the deep end here, so I love that we're
guess.
talking about life unfolding as it is here
Yeah.
right now. And I guess if we were to go way back in time, like I the last time we spoke, you said you were born in Reading and your parents were Christian scientists, to which degree do our perspectives start there and our birthplaces? I'm German, half Bulgarian. I could say that my perspective probably started in a place of, well, I guess a very stoic place, a very Catholic place.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to revisit that place in time, is it similar to where you're still now, or how a lot must have changed?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I think it's one of those things in retrospect is actually it is foundational in terms of that setting, that culture that we come into, and the religious element of it, of our parents, or I guess our peers that we're in, whether that's Catholic, atheist, whatever that is. So I think that's actually very foundational. I mean, it's hard. It's one of those things. It's hard to know because you don't see it. Because it's one of those things. Is so you come into it, you don't know any different, so you don't necessarily appreciate the perspective it is giving you. So Christian Science, for people that don't know, I mean, I don't actually know much about it. I couldn't really tell people what it is. And the English British way of practicing it is in some regards similar, or was my experience, in some regards similar to how the English and British practice religion, which is quite sort of moderate. Again, when I look back now and look at what the teachings are, it seems to me, and again, maybe people would disagree with it, but basically very similar to Byron Katie's message. So she was speaking in the language of the time, but basically that everything is mind made, in the sense that everything is love. Love is the only thing that's true. And then within that sits, let's say, the human mind that is creating and causing the separation, the identities, the beliefs, and so on. So it's like, this is what I took away from it. It's basically, you are love, everything is love, there is only love. And so that was something very, very relaxing, very peaceful. So I remember as a child, we'd go to church and it was boring as hell, like most churches are, or for me anyway, but still that message went in, it did go in, we'd take it. It was, they believed, I think, very much in the power, that spirit is primary. And so they do a lot of spiritual healing. So praying, they didn't believe, some still don't, too much in Western medicine, which, again, I think spirit works through many ways, and it works through Western medicine and through prayer and through all sorts of different mechanisms. And I think there's what I'm trying to improve all the time is that intuition and instinct of, well, where is it true? Where is it, let's say, love that is manifesting itself within Western medicine, or within the world of therapy, or within the world of prayer? Because this sort of definition of love is very difficult. But what I find useful is this idea that love is an outcome. It's something that's better. So it's quite pragmatic, and I believe pragma is a Greek word for love. There's different types of love, and pragma is this kind of down-to-earth, realistic, what's the best we can achieve? So it's this thing is, does it work? Is the spiritual prayer working? Well, sometimes it does, and it really does. There really are extraordinary things. But sometimes maybe it's not. Now, who knows why? Is it because they're practicing it incorrectly? There may be a multitude of reasons that, maybe there's this other thing that does work. And it's like, I guess, again, this kind of yin yang thing where you're able to ebb and flow and synthesize these different sides, because they're all part of, for me anyway, they're all part of the same thing. Nothing can be separate. It's not possible. They are just different facets.
Yeah. I find this interesting because when I came to you, I'm not going to lie, I don't think I told you this at the time, but I thought I'm going to an acupuncturist. I need to read up on what they would believe or anything like that. And I had exposure to Chinese medicine before by proxy, but I read up on the concepts of yin and yang beforehand. I thought, oh, this is similar to Hermetic principles, masculine and feminine, solar, lunar, that sort of archetype around um, a spectrum. But I feel like I'm not doing it justice here. So would you be okay to just explain how you perceive it
You
within the?
can't do it justice. It's not possible. I mean,
Yeah.
this is the dilemma, and this is what I love. This is the thing that's so fun, because every time we just come straight up to this reality of the dilemma that this is something we cannot, as the first thing I think it says in the Tao Te Ching is the Tao that can be described is not the true Tao.
Mm,
So, but it's great fun to try, and then within that there is this kind of to get into the felt sense of it, that there's an experience of vibrancy. That's what we're looking for, is the relationship to vibrancy that is embodied, and that is then, let's say, the Tao manifesting itself in the body, and then that would turn into perception of energy and maybe
mm,
chakras and channels as you go into that. But not imagining it, realizing it. So it's something that is experienced, and that could take decades. Some people might be able to experience that quickly. Some people may never be
mm,
able to. Caveat, let's say, in this lifetime, which I'm not even sure about. Again, so even as I'm talking around and about this yin yang dilemma that we've got. We can define it, but we can't define it.
yeah.
It's definable, it's indefinable, and then it's neither. It's none of those either.
Mm,
So you see people do this, and this is yin wrapping the yang,
mm,
um, which is integration, and that's a continuous process that's manifesting itself moment to moment. So how do we bring those two? They're not opposing sides; they're complementary sides
yeah.
together, and that is a dynamic, in the moment, creative process that, in a sense, can't be known. You can intuit it,
Mm,
you can learn to be better at it, but you're never going to get it. So this, and I love that. So here's the mystery, and do we even need to do it? Is another, because let's say there's myself and yourself, and there's people that have, I guess, certain personality that love this stuff, fascinating, brilliant, and maybe very useful. And then there's maybe a whole section of people couldn't care less and maybe don't need it.
yeah. And that's okay.
So again, so that's yin yang too.
Yeah.
So I
Mm,
think okay. So I think I don't know if I don't know if he's Professor or Dr. Ian McGilchrist, and he's this brilliant neuroscientist, I believe. And he talks really about the two sides, the left and right hemisphere, and it's very much in there. So it's built into us. It's built into everything, and it is about the relation. It's about relationship. What I feel. So what I guess might be interesting is, because with the acupuncture and my background, we can talk about it more in the Tai Chi and breathwork, is to embody this. It's not something that is thought about. We might initially start doing this, but then it's got to be actualized and embodied and lived and felt and experienced. When I'm even attempting to talk about it, what I experience is just this lovely energy in my heart, just it's
mm.
sort of a bubbling excitement, and I don't know what it is, but it feels good. So that's
Yeah.
maybe.
But I guess when we're starting to talk about acupuncture, that would have started for you at some point too. Like, how did you fall into a field
So
like that?
that was very unexpected. So my background's very science based. I've always been, or I was, very black and white. So very, very, I'd say, very disconnected. Yeah, just I thought that sort of artistic side of things was just a load of bollocks.
Mm.
I remember having this kind of argument with someone that, that art, yeah, is pretty, but a lot of it could just be consensus. It's just like some people that other people think are cool say this is really great, and everyone else goes, yeah, isn't it great? Now, there's actually some truth in that, I suppose. But I didn't understand that side, so I was very much looking at things materialistically and scientifically. But again, I sort of intuition, I guess it would be that was wrong, and there was something missing. While I studied material science and metallurgy at Manchester, and I stayed on longer than some of my friends because I took an extra few years because I was partying. And one of my friends, he came back, so he'd gone out into the real world, and he just said, one of those things that really sort of just struck me, and it somehow I was ready to hear that. He just said, I wish I'd made more use of my time, the free time to go and do, societies or to go and do something. And somehow it's like, yes, actually, that's right. And I'd been given a book on meditation by a friend. And again, for some reason, I found it fascinating. And there was a passage on Tai Chi. And again, that really caught me, something in that. I thought that's really cool. And I saw a poster up in the college, went to the class, and we did some stuff with Qi. And I can go, Qi is a Chinese word. It doesn't mean magic. It just means Qi, which is a Chinese way of defining something. So again, in Chinese language, in Chinese medicine is the language they had at the time to describe what they would see, because they didn't know about viruses and bacteria. They didn't know about inflammation. They didn't know about DNA, but they could observe all of that. And so they would then give Chinese words to label that domain. So
phenomenon itself.
Phenomenon, and the phenomenon is many, many different facets. It is, so we could say there's an element of Qi that is to do with your mitochondrial function, how well your mitochondria are functioning in the diet, how well you literally produce ATP energy. That's part of Qi. But it is more than that as well. So you can do stuff where you relax and you feel that feeling and you see the effect of it. And the moment that happened, it was literally something in me just went, whatever that was, that's what I've been looking for. This is the thing that connects.
Yeah.
And so I just fell in love with training, Tai Chi, Qigong, Kung Fu. It was a sort of complete system, very traditional Chinese Taoist system. And it became, I fell in love with it. It became a life. I stopped drinking, stopped smoking, stopped everything, became very boring, practically a monk. And reading all the books on Chinese medicine I could just for fun. It was just a passion. And then one day I was reading an introductory book, and it does actually get quite complicated quite quickly, because you're then starting to have to think in this way, and it's not just clear cut like the Western science thing, something that you can grasp. It contains that, but it also contains the other side of it. And I remember reading this book, and I was sitting in my parents' garden, and it just got really difficult, and I just closed the book. I thought, oh my God, this is far too complicated. I really need to study it. And it's literally like a giant light bulb. I mean, literally, it's like, bang, that's it. This is what I'm going to do in my life. This is what you're doing. This is it. So I was really struck. Again, very physical. It was a very, very physically striking experience. I was quite shocked, because I'd never, up until that moment, I was going to go and work in a factory in British Steel and do material science and metallurgy. Yeah, it's all
That's an
right.
alchemist's path almost. It screams alchemy if you're saying it like that, but at the same time, that embodied feeling, that shocking embodied feeling that you had, what was it like? What do you think?
It was very like the body just bang, and then I'm just like
Yeah.
kind of shaking. And the other experience I had that was fascinating was it was like these blinkers. This just I could just feel just dropping.
Mm.
It's like I was a horse with blinkers on like this, and it's like, Jonathan, you can do anything you want as long as it's these things. The whole world is your oyster as long as it's these things here. And I hadn't seen that limitation. So the idea that you can do anything was completely false. It's
Mm.
like I was entranced, didn't know it, but it's like, what actually in reality, you can do this, it's all the normal stuff, whatever it is, doctor, lawyer, engineer, whatever. But here are the things that are available to you. Choose one of those. And it was so then this very strange and experience of suddenly, again, and uh, very visceral of shit. Don't mind me swearing.
No, no, I fucking hell swear away. It's all good.
um, I can literally do anything. I
Mm.
can literally do anything. I am completely free. So there was this feeling of like, oh my God, I'm totally free. There is nothing stopping me from doing anything, which on the one hand felt very, very, very spacious. And then the other hand is quite some fear. I guess there's the sort of responsibility, ability, am I going to, well, what followed that, because it was very, very strong. But then what was interesting was it was actually then followed by about 3 months of actually very intense fear. And again, I was really surprised at times how strong the fear from the body was coming out, because part of me, it's like all the fears just started assaulting. It's like, you're an idiot. What do you think you're doing? You're just escaping reality. This is make believe. But they weren't just thoughts. It was stronger. It was like it was in the body, very strong
Mm.
fear. Like, don't do this. You're an idiot. You're a fool. You're gonna screw it all up. This is a big mistake. And it was very, very strong. I remember one day actually kind of in tears from it because I was so conflicted.
Mm.
And then, and it, I had like dear friends and fathers and other people. It's like, well, yeah, don't be a fool. What are you thinking? Studying
Mm.
acupuncture, why don't you go and study Western medicine or do something else? But it's like, I have no interest in that. I do not want to study that. I mean, now I'm fascinated by it, but at the time it's like, no, 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 no. So again, the very visceral body response, like, no.
Yeah.
But anyways, whatever, something in me managed to follow that and just go for it. But, well, why not? I can. I was in a situation where I can do this. I can study at weekends. It's 4 year part-time course, and yeah. So then I did it, and
Mm.
that was remarkable. Which leads me again. A really interesting thing was my first day at acupuncture college was like a homecoming, because up until that point, in some sense, I did have these interests and fascinations that nobody shared. And it's like, oh, shut up, Jonathan, stop going on about
Tempted to
Chinese
ask
medicine.
like what? Oh, as in Chinese medicine.
Well, yeah, because I got really into health and meditation and the whole thing, all of it.
Mm.
Um, the spiritual side of things. Reading lots of books like the Upanishads and Eastern philosophy and religion, and so I was really into that. No, and obviously, for most people, it's probably really boring. So, which is, now I understand that. It was really interesting to kind of walk into that room and just suddenly meet all these people that were like me, and it was the first time I'd ever experienced that in my life, actually, in that
Mm.
way. And that was again really, it's like, oh, I'm not. It's not that there's, because it's not that there's something wrong with me, or In that sense, it's like, oh, it's actually okay. There are other people like me, and isn't that nice that I can enjoy that that like-mindedness, and then also enjoying my other friendships, and obviously learning just to dial it down a bit sometimes, because I think it's the same with anything. Anyone can become a bore. So friends, if they're going on about bloody golf or something, it's like if you're not into it, right?
Well, that's where perspective becomes important. Like for some people, golf is life. I personally don't know anything about it, but I want to just make it clear, like, please go into a flow of consciousness here around your relationship to spirituality and everything, because that's the point of diving into perspective in a weird way, right? So I haven't experienced it as boring, but I'm biased in that sense, I guess.
Well, again, we share similar. Again, we've had lots of really great conversations because we're kind of quite like-minded. We do find all of this fascinating. We do love it. It is a great adventure for us. So, and that's always fun. So it's always really nice meeting people and being able to talk about these things and enjoy it. I guess it started. I loved all those old books and the stories of enlightenment and monks sitting in caves and kung fu people doing all sorts of stuff. It's great. It just sounds like a great adventure and it's kind of exciting and challenging and fascinating, and it kind of made sense. So it's just funny. Okay, so as I'm speaking, I just had this kind of memory pop up. So when I was quite young, I used to spend a lot of time looking out the window over Wimbledon Common. We're very lucky living in Wimbledon Common. So I'd just spend a long time just gazing out, just gazing out, daydreaming. And there was this one evening where the moon was bright, a full moon. And I just had this, it wasn't a thought, it was a kind of realization, insight that the moon only exists because I'm perceiving it. It was somehow this insight that without awareness, nothing exists, literally. So somehow it's like the awareness is the thing that allows things to appear and manifest and to be seen, and that they need to be seen. And so again, it's something that then viscerally struck me. It seemed like, yes, something that couldn't be grasped intellectually at all. It's just sort of oh my God. And it's strange. It's like it's almost like the moon. There was a relationship with the moon. The moon depends on my seeing somehow. I'm seeing the moon, and and so that would be, which is one of those experiences that if you then read these other books, they're pointing to that kind of, they're pointing to that kind of thing. So,
that's quite an interesting memory to kind of come up here, because in a weird way, I'm thinking about, the double slit paradigm in quantum physics, which is around perception and the behavior of things around perception, the idea or concept of Maya, everything being an illusion. But then I'm thinking, okay, this is a young memory. Are you looking out at Wimbledon Common and you're aware of the fact that awareness is what creates, in a way? That's sort of what I'm hearing there as well.
Yeah, awareness is primary. Yes. I think a lot of us have this. I'm sure many people, maybe it's very common. I mean, some of us will forget it, or the experience can be, it's kind of like, oh yeah, and then we move on.
Yeah.
The mind moves. It's like, yeah, wow, that's amazing.
See,
right, come on.
It's true. It becomes, okay, chop wood now. Fine, we've noticed that. But
well, I think the mind gets bored of it as well. So the mind, will have these experiences, and I'm sure they're very common. Certainly when we're younger, and then the mind is like, well, it's time to go and watch Scooby-Doo. So
yeah,
or whatever the mind, wants to get on with. So, we don't necessarily, the mind doesn't think to dwell on that. There's no point dwelling on it anyway.
Well, I think my experiences of the moon were less sophisticated than yours. When I was growing up, I remember looking at thinking, "You're so old," and then I had these flashes coming by in front of my inner mind's eye, which were Hitler looked at you, Mozart looked at you, Beethoven looked at you, all these different people have all looked at the same moon, and that was more of a moment of unity again in a strange way. And then yeah, I probably moved on to. I have that sort of memory of the moon growing up.
Well, that's lovely again, because it's true. Absolutely, isn't it? It's like there we are. It just takes a moment,
Mm.
see the wonder and mystery that is right in front of our eyes, and it's kind of incomprehensible. It is. I mean, it's profound. So I think again, this yin yang thing is how do we link the profound with the mundane? Because the mundane is actually equally important. So that would be one of my not errors. One of I guess the things that one goes through is going towards the profound too much. It's like everything must be profound, be profound. More meditation, more deeper, and it's like, yeah, actually also missing out on just normal everyday life, which is as important and as spiritual. And so this idea of the mundane, I love this, and I believe again the root of the word is mundus, which means everything, the world. Yeah. So that would be the yin, the mother. So coming back to the everyday and the valuing of all the shitty things that happen, the boring, because. Okay, so as I say that one of the things I love is language. I think language is it is creating the world around us through our thoughts and perceptions and stories. And I love how some of these words that we often miss, so that within some of these words is can be this profound refrain that then helps us to change our relationship. So if we just look at the word boring, well, most people, it's like, well, it's boring. Off it goes. But then boring, it's like, well, we bore a hole. So it's like we drill a hole. So boring is an energy that goes in and down.
Yeah.
You bore a well. So boring is is an energy that comes in, yin.
Yeah.
So if you then actually take boring and feel it and sit with it, what you'll feel is the energy is taking you into stillness, taking you down, going deeper. So it's actually a portal. And I think it's like one of the, again, it's sort of a good metaphor again, because this is all going towards, this, I guess, journey to our relationship to something, what you call it the divine, what we really are, the truth. So I often think of it like, if you go to a temple, I'm thinking of one of the temples in, it could be any temple. I'm thinking of the Buddhist temple in Wimbledon, and they've got the lion dogs outside, and I believe again, I think some people may again correct me on this, but they're the guardians to the temple. So to get into the temple, you've got to pass the lion dogs. So what are the lion dogs? And I think one element of them could be, or can be, or is fear, anger, boredom. Boredom is a brilliant guardian, because most people they start to approach the temple, which is here. It is in the body. It is literally in the body. And then they get bored. It's like, oh, okay, that's enough. I've tried meditating. I'm bored. I can't do it. I give up. So it's just been defeated, rather than opening into that experience and seeing where that carries us, because each of those emotions is an energy. The felt sense it's expansive, or goes out or in, moves or still. So that they're all can be used as vehicles to take us closer towards that kind of inner inner sanctum, which is the body. It is in the body. It's embodied. So when people say look within, they mean it bloody literally. Literally, look here, right here, this point here, or the dandian, which is below the belly button. Put your attention, your awareness inside your body, and pay attention, and do the work, and stuff will start to happen. And it's real. It's not imaginary. But you have to realize it. So again, this is one of the issues with all of this work, because it is ephemeral and ethereal, is it's really easy to bullshit ourselves. And I've been a master at that. Probably still am in lots of ways, where we're imagining it. It's pseudo, it's superficial, it's not authentic. And so this would be the kind of the scientist, the chemist side of me. It's like that outcome, the real thing. Is it real? Have you realized that thing?
I think you're making an important point there, and I might want to revisit that around discernment, particularly when we talk about spirituality. Everybody can have 100 different definitions of what it means. Some of the concepts of yin and yang and other things. But just to rewind a little bit, like when you started to really involve yourself with acupuncture, Chinese medicine, and anything, I mean, the journey didn't stop there. It's a juncture in your life, from what I've heard. What are the perspectives that have stayed with you from Chinese medicine that could be worth sharing?
So a lot of it's very, very practical, which is what I love about it. So people have, unfortunately, most people will have a perception, a perspective on what they think Chinese medicine acupuncture is. And it ranges from its magic to its utter bollocks. Of course, both of those are completely incorrect. And to understand what Chinese medicine is, one has to study it for years and then practice it. So primarily what it is pragmatic common sense. It's you're looking for the root cause, and the root cause of illness, disease, is physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, environmental, toxins, dietary, exercise, breath. It's this whole arena of different practical things that are real and interact and have a feedback between them. So what you're looking for is, you're doing a diagnosis and you're looking, well, what are the primary, secondary, tertiary causes? What are the things we need to fix in this person's life so they can be manifest health? Now, a big part of that is self-responsibility. It's not sexy. It's not heroic. It really, it's like, take responsibility, eat properly, eat well, exercise, breathe, sleep. It's stuff everybody knows, but do it. Don't. Okay. So very famous Chinese medical saying is don't get ill. And I think that the thing is so Western medicine don't really have a definition of what health is, except for a set of blood markers. But for us in Chinese medicine, health is the presence of physical, mental, emotional, spiritual qualities that is then embodied in experience. So, and it's different for each person because we're all different, but it will be something that is full, flourishing, dynamic, strong, supple, wisdom, sense of humor, flexibility, mentally, emotionally, a connection to something, some kind of, because the spirit of joy, the spirit of play, the sacred, the wonder of the world, the awe of the science. There's something there that has, and I do this movement. It's got a quality to it that brings us something that we feel and experience. So health is not just I'm all right, I'm all right, Jack. It is that. It's much more than that. And I think most people haven't experienced how good it feels to be healthy. So that, when we were young, great. It's just full of joy and zest and running around and just life's wonderful, assuming there's no sort of terrible issues or traumas. But so there's that kind of just fullness and joy that's bursting out of us. And then, certainly in the West, people just start partying and drinking and eating crap and then get used to feeling a certain way and think that's just normal. So this was one of the revelations of when I started training in the Tai Chi and Qigong, is I just couldn't believe what I was feeling. It was like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's like having champagne running through your veins.
Gosh.
And it's like, my God, give me more of this. I want more of this feeling of vibrancy and aliveness and energy, vitality. And then, the Taoist and Chinese medicine is very much how you cultivate energy. How do you build your qi and your blood and your jing, which are just words for a set of facets of us. So spending some time learning how to do breath work, meditation, because you do start to build that energy, and then physically building yourself, be strong, exercise. And so that would be with the Chinese medicine, it's really like, come on, for God's sake, don't get ill, make the best of what you've got. Western medicine's so good in some ways, it's been so effective that what it's done, it had this tremendous promise with antibiotics and stuff. And it's like, well, we're just going to fix everything. We're just going to give you a pill. Don't worry about it. We'll take responsibility for your health. Science will come up with an answer. You can stop exercising. You can eat crap. You can be stressed, whatever it is, don't worry. There's going to be a magic cure, because, they're what? Antibiotics, magic, essentially, But of course, that's not true. So I think, there's an element where people have, as a society, it's like, well, somehow health is not really my responsibility. It's the health system. They'll take care of me. And there's an inertia and a sort of a laziness and a lack of fear. I mean, bloody hell. It's like, do you have any idea how bad your life could be if you carry on this path in 5 years, 10 years time? Have some vision, and again, so to be a positive vision, having a positive vision. I want to be, as best as I can when I'm 80, 90 years old. I want to be fit and vital as much as possible. I want to be alive. I don't want to have chronic sickness and that hell of illness. So that would be the primary thing of Chinese medicine. It's very practical. It's very down to earth. It's not, everybody knows it. Acupuncture is a technique of Chinese medicine. It's not Chinese medicine. Chinese medicine is the theory and understanding of health and disease and how you diagnose. And then it's like, well, what are we going to do about it? And we've got all these different tools that we can use to then change the situation. So you can use herbal medicine, you can use heat therapy, cold therapy, exercise therapy, breath therapy, acupuncture, massage, cupping, and then everything else that works. So antibiotics, surgery, anything that works to then, change the system, change the dynamic, and move people back towards health. So that's all it is, very practical. And, one of the things that's interesting is within Chinese medicine, there's a lot of bullshit. Or it might be very nice and beautiful, but it might not be very practical. So it's more the kind of very beautiful poetic stuff or esoteric stuff and it doesn't mean that it can't work and doesn't work. There might be some very skilled practitioners that can do some really extraordinary stuff, but it's a skill. It's not magic. They've trained to actually be able to create an outcome. But that doesn't mean... Sorry.
What do you think is the bullshit part? Like, if you were to
it's really hard to say. It's sort of individual as well because it depends
Yeah.
on your style. It depends on the practitioner. So that you can go down into very very specialized areas where um, some people are extraordinarily skilled at needle technique and
Mm,
manipulating chi through the needle, and it works. It really does. Now, but that doesn't mean everyone can do it.
mm,
And so some of that it really is real, but is it realized? So you can have brilliant plumbers and you can have terrible plumbers, and it's no different. So
true. Yeah.
some people may be able to develop sort of quite esoteric skills that really can work, and that doesn't mean they're going to work for everybody every time. No medicine does, but they really will be able to do some remarkable things. But then you have other people that it's imaginary. They're not doing it. They think they're doing it. Now it doesn't mean that the person might be benefiting from the time and the space and the attention, because that's part of the treatment, the human interaction, the energetics of having someone
Mm,
focus on us helps us. It's not just placebo. There's some real benefit to that. And then there's again, some very esoteric things to do with the time of days and, then which port channels are open depending on the time of day and year. And then you might needle that, do this and do that. And again, some people probably make that work and amazing, but for most practitioners, it's not practical. It doesn't deliver the results.
yeah.
Or you've got to spend 40 years failing or not doing maybe such a good job
Ouch.
to get to that. I you,
Mm,
so that yeah, and then there's some of it that is just bollocks. Where giving people mercury. Some of the herbs, some of the stuff. It's like no, that's poison.
mm,
Don't do that. Yeah, you can see a temporary effect that might be beneficial in the short term, but no, you're killing them, or there's no benefit at all. So again, it's reality that within the world of Chinese medicine, there's the parts of it that are useful, practical, wonderful, profound. But by the same token, in the Western world of Western medicine, it is just the same. There's a load of stuff in Western medicine, absolutely unbelievable, amazing, phenomenal, and a lot of it. But then there's parts of it, absolute,
bullshit.
bull, doesn't work, dangerous, death from correctly prescribed medication is the number. I think it's still the number 3 highest after cancer and heart disease, or heart disease and cancer. Iatrogenic death from Western medicine treatment is the 3rd biggest killer.
It's
So within
crazy.
Western medicine, you've got this the beauty, the value, the truth, that thing that is alive and vital, and then the other side of it is this thing that isn't alive
Mm,
and vital, and so this would then be this discernment, that we need to have that discernment and ability to continually refresh and update ourselves. Like, we thought that works. We had really good reasons for thinking it works. It doesn't. It does. Oh, look, actually, maybe the effects are worse. And just having that humility. Western medicine it's become a kind of religion to many people. It's sort of elevated the new priests, the doctors to some degree. They know everything. Less so now, but certainly, I guess 10, 20 years ago.
there's so much there in terms of what you just said, because what you just described is the balance, right? So when you talked about this Chinese saying of just don't get ill, it could sound flippant, but what it's really saying is, can we care about prevention as well? It's like before you get ill, what happens? It's but I associate with Chinese medicine, rightly or wrongly, so correct me if I'm wrong there, is preventative care,
Yeah,
living better.
primarily that's what we do. We're not. Well, they used to have bone setters and stuff, so they would do
Mm,
broken bones, but they're not. Chinese medicine is incredible. Okay, so acute trauma, obviously not.
yeah,
But Chinese medicine, in parallel with Western medicine, because again, you can combine them, and there's a place for one. There's a place for both independently of each other, and then there's a place for them combined. Um, But so Chinese medicine, it's not Chinese, it's just medicine. It's just the practical, these days we would call it functional medicine has become, or integrative medicine has becoming a big thing, which is kind of Western medicine getting back to its roots of what are the root causes, what are all the different things that are going on, rather than here's a pill. It's like, well, how do we solve this problem? Mm-hmm. What's going on here? What do we do to fix the different things that are out of the balance? So it's not, it's just medicine. And a lot of the same principles are within many of the other medicines around the world. It's just common sense. But yeah, it is preventative. And then with, people coming in with chronic conditions, again, it can be immensely effective. But it's not magic. It's hard work. It's like it's finding out what is going on in that person's life that's contributing to the disease process and then correcting it. A big part of it is nutrition. People's diets are appalling. So to get people eating the right food for their body, because again, we all have differences. So what food is the right food? And for people to not be so emotional about food. Again, I've become a bit more, let's say, a bit more yang when with people come. It's like, oh, I couldn't possibly live without that croissant. It's like, oh, please, for God's sake, stop that bullshit. Don't give me that shit. Look, just either, as like, do or do not. It's like, do you want to get better? Do you care about yourself? I'm not going to babysit you. But you see this energy when we come in with the fire. So this is more fire energy. So we're coming in with the stick and we're giving people like, wake up. You're responsible. I'm not going to do this for you. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to give you some solutions that will most likely help and work. Do it.
It's a choice. Yeah.
It's take responsibility. Grasp the nettle. Learn to suffer, for God's sake. Stop being so weak. Again, weakness and strength, we need both. Yeah, be nice and sensitive and soft. But, also, be a lion. One of the things I like to say to people, because I think people are in this trance of how weak they are. Oh, I couldn't possibly do that. You can't do that. Oh, for Christ's sake. It's like, all of us can trace our ancestors back millions and millions of years in reality. I mean, obviously we can't do that, but if we could, we can because they exist. So we are the product of all the children and mothers that have survived the most horrific, difficult circumstances that are unimaginable to us today. We can't even comprehend how the difficulties that our ancestors have survived to result in us. So what that means is we are the pinnacle of that whole process. So I don't know what the latest iPhone is, but whatever the latest iPhone is, that's us. That's everybody here now. It's like built into our DNA, built into us. And again, I would say physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, is this unbelievable vitality, power, tenacity to thrive and live. And so people, they're not in touch with that. So it's like, come on, just for God's sake, your ancestors survived unbelievable pain, and you're telling me you can't deal with not having a croissant for a few weeks. It's like, get a grip.
The thing is, what I need to add is I haven't actually experienced Jonathan speak to me like that, but then I don't eat croissants. Maybe that is the speech I haven't.
I do it with a smile and a laugh, but
I know you do. But I think the key thing that you're talking about there, and I experienced this in therapy too, if we're talking about perspective, and I always think about the balance of things. It's like, where is my client out of balance right now? We can talk about the sense of, where are people out of balance? That's sort of a question I walk around with quite often. So in that moment in time, there are some of us who actually probably could do with getting in touch with our feelings, with our body, and the sort of vulnerability that can come with it. But that's steering into the uncomfortable part. Then there is a broad part of society right now, I think also, that is really used to comforts and actually the divorced life from nature, like a real sense of detachment from that's a real sense of detachment from what a natural cycle is like, what the natural feeling of suffering can be like, even as it pertains to seasons, other stuff. We've not had a cold winter in a long time, I think, in that sort of sense. And that's where I find your perspective quite refreshing, because to be woken up to your choice is something quite powerful. And I think a lot of people don't dare to do it. It's like, really? You can't survive not having that cross on. That's a really important question sometimes.
Well, it's because what of course we can do is you can then, you can have that kind of, the shaking, waking people up, and then you can combine that then with being more yin. It's like, okay, great. Now I've woken you up. Should we do something about this? Let's look at, maybe now we can look at, what might be causing you to do that. And that could be, actually quite a really deep, uncomfortable, emotional stuff. And then that's an entry to actually then look at, why do you find it so difficult? I think this thing of waking up, it is scary, because what you're then looking at, we're confronting life itself, and that then does bring up the deepest questions, which is birth and death. So life, it's not life and death, it's birth and death. Life is birth and death. So metaphorically, if we stand up or just sit straight and we look straight ahead, so we can do that, obviously, where we are now, and what we'll do is we'll see a long way ahead, assuming you're outside.
Yes.
And so you'll see a long way ahead. You'll see all the way to the horizon, if you're by the coast. Internally, what that means is that if we sit up straight and we look straight ahead in our life, we look all the way to death. It's like death is there, it is, and we see it because it's sitting there on the horizon. And of course, most of us don't want to do that. And it's because of our relationship to death. Now, death is just a word, and it's yin. It's just a word. So it's no different to exit. So when we look at exit, we don't feel dread and fear and horror. We often feel it's relief. It's like, thank God there's an exit. Like, get me out. So the exit, death, they're labels for the same thing. Yin, which is another label for the same thing. So that gives us insight into what that thing actually is in reality. And we have unfortunately, a very negative relationship to the word death. Great dread, fear, panic, terror. So we don't even want to look. So we can't look at life, because to look at life, you have to look at birth and death. And so what we need to do for ourselves, is to disarm those words. Birth, most people don't have it. It's like, yeah, that's nice. But, our relationship to that is generally positive, but our relationship to death is mostly completely negative and fearful. So it's not, the issue is not death. The issue is our perspective, our concepts, our thoughts about death, what we think it is, because what it is indefinable, but we can have a sense of what it is from, like, the word exit.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
And ironically, from whatever preceded birth too. In a weird way, that's where it goes full circle, maybe, to
yes, it does.
It's I was just struck by something you said earlier around that time when you realized that you had that light bulb moment with acupuncture and Chinese medicine, and how you felt fear for a couple of weeks or months even. In a weird way, that's a form of death too. And I think we have many of those in our lifetime, maybe sometimes, the sense of shedding an old skin and stepping into something completely new. Unless I'm contriving this right now. And
no, 100%, spot on. Yeah. And there's something energetic, there's something that happens in the body that once we start to recognize it and become familiar with it, it actually becomes a signal. It's like, yes, I recognize this feeling. I know this feeling. This is actually something very actually joyful. It's energy moving. It's possibility. It's that jumping off the diving board. And so again, our relationship to that experience becomes positive. It's like, oh, I remember this feeling. I didn't used to like it because of what I was thinking and believing about what I thought it meant. But actually, now I understand this means yes. And then there'll be part of us going, oh shit, are you sure? What? Maybe. And that is then the leap of faith, because you're then stepping into that energetically stepping into it, or allowing it to carry you. And that would be this because it is an act of faith. You cannot know if it's right. You cannot know that the mind wants this guarantee. It wants it written down that, yes,
yeah,
this is the right. And it's
I know.
But I think, what I've learned is that feeling and the way it manifests and the way we experience it is the guarantee.
So has that feeling happened again since? Because I'm aware we've talked about acupuncture, but I don't want to present you as a monolith here, because I haven't experienced you just on a plane. I've seen partly also your involvement in breath work and journey work, as it's called, but then also you've got a whole other life outside of that. You're surfing, your dad, you've got family, there's so much to you. And that brings also the piece of identity within these moments of renaissance. You might be shedding one skin, but there's so many facets to human life. It's absolutely mesmerizing in a weird way. So,
yeah. Well, we all are, aren't we? I mean, all of us, because we're all having this incredible adventure. And I do think it's all equal, actually. We're all having the experience that we need to have at exactly the right level, and it is. So I have that kind of faith that it is. There is no. We're all having exactly the experience that we require, and life is giving that to us. And it might be horrendous, but that's what it usually takes. I think for most of us, my own case, to have the real breakthroughs, it had to be hell. It has to be hell, because that's the breaking of the shell and all the resistance and fear. So I think perhaps maybe for everybody, maybe that's an absolutism, but almost everybody, we have to go through, some very dark times and suffering before that, I guess, this spiritual element. And when I say the word spiritual, I mean something very practical and pragmatic and real. For us to open into that and start to have the humility. It's like, well, okay, I have no idea what's going on. Help. And often that's when help does arrive, because then we're suddenly open. And that's, we see this, and I'm sure you see this all the time in your practice as well, is that there's people that they've not suffered, they're not ready yet to face their deep emotions and feel and experience. They've still got that wall, that eggshell up, which is maybe very appropriate and very needed for many people. And so it's like, well, the suffering, it may be awful, but it's preferable to what might to anything else. Yeah. So I think we all have to, in my experience, come to that sort of point where we're sort of on our knees, and then these bigger breakthroughs and realizations and experiences can actually happen. And I see that with people all the time. There's some people that just walk in and they're cooked, they're ready, and it's like amazing, extraordinary experiences and changes and revelations that, it took them decades and decades to get to that point, and they just, I happen to have some tools that work that can then facilitate that. And then other people that they'll walk in the door and it's just like, oh God, this is going to be such hard work. This is going to be like wading through mud. And it's like, and what's the reality of how much I can actually even, because again, I'm sure you have that. You might be able to see lots of stuff, and that people have to be ready to receive and be ready to open, and
Yeah.
so that's part of the process too.
I mean, would you mind sharing what you told me not too long ago around acupuncture and how I think there was a part of you that at some point could kind of have several sessions at the same time, and there was a real sense of, am I doing enough? But that's what people needed. Like, can you remember that time when you were kind
Yeah,
of?
I can. Yeah, so I used to like do 2 or 3 rooms at once, and I just run from room to room, and people loved it. I was really, really busy, and I had to be very, very focused. So in terms of my what we call the qi and my yi, which is the Chinese word for intent, it was like very sharp. But so it's like
Mm-hmm.
they'd feel that, and I think they like that because it's very sharp, pointed, focused energy on them, and then bang, 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 put the music on. Right, I'll see you in, and check on them and go back
Yeah.
and forth. But because the acupuncture works, the ritual of acupuncture works. Like the ritual of anything is really important part of it. And often in Western medicine, they want to separate out that human aspect. That they want to separate out just the power, just the power of chatting to your mate about your problems, and it's like immensely healing.
Yeah.
And so the effect of having someone who is paying you attention, plus the needles, plus the other things. But what I experienced was, people loved that, and that was great. That was enough. But there was something I remember actually going. I had a session myself with a practitioner, and she just sat next to me. She didn't say a word. She just sat with me, and I was really struck by how powerful just her presence was. The effect that had was like, my God, that's really doing something.
Mm.
I could really feel it. Really, I was really struck. Again, it's like bloody hell. So that's when I decided, no, I want to change. I don't want to be doing this. I want to do more. There's so much more we could do. I'd already done lots of journey work by then. There's so much potential. But then, there is that. So I shifted just to one-to-one. It's like, I'm just going to sit with people. I am not going to leave the room. And it can be quite uncomfortable, it's kind of silence and people not comfortable with silence. And then, but I'm just going to sit and stay and see what happens, see what starts to come up, see what starts to happen in the, whether it's just a conversation or they go to sleep or I'm sort of moved to do a process with them. It was, I think there's a lot of value to the multiple room setting where you pop the needles in and you leave them and you go and sit and read the newspaper. People seem to get a lot of benefit from that, and they didn't want more than that. And then I think, for me to learn that and actually, be able, it's like, here's all this other stuff that you can have, but they don't want it. And that's perfect. That's right. And so I did have and that struggle's never gone away because there's always that push and pull going on. It's like, is it how much, too much, too little, finding that point. So I moved to just sitting and then that's doing a lot more journey work, breath work, much more or just deeper consultations about diet, all sorts of stuff. And I found that very enriching for myself and very good for my own personal development because it's like, as you know, when you're working with people, it's, my God, it just brings up so much stuff. It's, it's like, oh my God, yeah, okay, I need to do some work on that. Oh my God, I need to do some more. So that constant push to, physician heal thyself. That's amazing and difficult process. So, at the moment I'm on sabbatical and I'm quite enjoying that because of 25 years of doing that. And it's like, I do a rest.
It's in a weird way as though I'm catching you in a moment of rest or maybe even transition in that sense again. So maybe there is a part of you that's transitioning into something else, or maybe it just is, which is lovely too. I don't know, unless I'm
Yeah.
mistaken that.
No, yeah, it's definitely, well, no, it is, I'm in a transition. I found it very easy to this time. I found it very easy to walk away from acupuncture. So I've walked away and I'm not
Yeah.
practicing, and I don't know that I'm ever going to start again. Right now, I really have no movement to practice acupuncture again. And my sense is I probably won't. But before, it was a big part of my identity. It was sort of me, but it was really interesting to see how easily that dropped away. Um, Again, it's like shedding of this I, this identity, this I, and it's like, yeah, well, actually, that's not me anyway. It's lovely. It's been great. Thank you.
Mm.
It's got me here. Life is now bringing something new. Something new is happening. I don't know what it's going to be. Um, but I'm very happy with that. Again, this is the wonderful thing about the kind of Chinese perspective is these tools for navigating changes in life. So, after when there's a change, we have something called the fertile void, which is the space, the yin. There's nothing,
Mm.
and most people don't like that. Like, oh God, get me out of this nothing. I need something, and then but nothing is beautiful, nothing is peace, nothing is rest, nothing is stillness, nothing.
Mm.
If we can drop into it, it's bliss. And then in that, there's this kind of, again, the faith, the trust that something will then be born. The yin will then move to yang, and something will start to move and bubble up, and there'll be a movement that will be organic, rather than what a lot of us do, and I've certainly done it a lot. Where it's mind made, it's like the mind's going, you've got to do something, you've got to fill your time, you need to be productive, you need to, and it's like, well,
Future tripping, that's what I
do
call
I?
it.
Um,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
a wonderful way of looking at it. And um, I'm just noticing I could talk to you for hours, so I hope that this is not going to be our last time doing this, because there's so much I haven't asked today, but I'm aware we're short of time. And there's one question that's quite close to my heart that I wanted to ask you as a bit of a, yeah, pivoting point as well as part of the podcast, which is, if you're thinking of experiences in your life, is there one moment in time that comes to mind that maybe shaped or changed your perspective in a way that it has impacted you to this day? And would you be okay to share that?
no, I'm perfectly okay to share it. I don't know. I'm thinking because there's so
Take some
many.
time, because that's obviously a big question.
Yeah, okay. So there's one. I'll give you a darker one that was very profound and very important. And it's great value. It was very challenging, and that was actually at university. It was it was a spiritual breakthrough, but it chemically induced those through smoking too much weed, which I didn't think was possible. But it actually, well, these days it's well understood because the stuff's much stronger. But I had this experience. I'd never had it before, where I don't know whether it was the stuff we got, but it was so strong, or something in me maybe had reached a point where this was going to happen. I don't know, but I basically had a complete trip on this stuff, and it was as I look back now, it was actually again an opening into, had I had the tools and the maturity, it would have just been an opening into a spiritual experience of losing myself, and then I would have come back, and it would have all been beautiful and hunky dory. But the reality of it can be very, very frightening when you literally lose your whole identity, dissolves, an ego death. And it was true terror.
What did it feel like? Did it feel like you melted into space and lost your body, or
No,
just trying to kind of?
What I was experiencing was I had tunnel vision, and I literally could see and feel. So it felt very, very, again, visceral, that I was literally creating my mind, my perception was creating reality. And so it was like, here was this little thing that's real, and it only exists like a torch, like lighting up something, and then nothing around it was just nothing, absolutely nothing.
Wow.
And the other thing I had was my head had vanished. And it was this overwhelming feeling of having lost my head. And then it's just like everything was losing. I was losing everything, and I was like scrambling to hold on to I guess the ego, the identity. And I remember, being in this state of real terror actually, and then checking the time and thinking, got at least 20 minutes, half an hour's passed. This will be changing soon. And it's like 30 seconds. It's like, oh shit. So I hadn't that. I've done other stuff in the past, but that was so profound and powerful that I just stopped. That was it. It sort of blasted me out of all the party stuff completely. And it made me very, very sensitive. And then so then it was like trying to, I guess, put that together and put it into a context and understand what happened. And what was really interesting was, I don't know if you've heard of Douglas Harding. He's got a brilliant book, and it's called On Having No Head and Zen and Having No Head. And what you'll see is there's lots of representations of this, where you'll see statues with no head. You'll see, in Buddhism, they'll talk about lose your head. And it's like, bloody hell. And then there's this whole book about it. It's an incredible book. It's a small book. It's Douglas Harding on Having No Head. And it's actually exactly a lovely sort of way this connects is the perspective. And this idea is that, and he shows you in a very real, visceral way that what sits on top of here is the world. Only other people have heads. So when I look at you, I can see a head. But what's appearing here, where my head sits, is not my head. It's my kitchen right now, or my computer screen.
I'm having goosebumps because I remember one of my first thoughts as a child being, why is it that only I see the world through my eyes the way I do? And that sounds really strange, but it's exactly that perception of, I don't see my head. I don't actually half the time know I have one. It's just the world.
So this is why this book is so profound, because it's such a direct perspective shift, like instantaneous. It's like, oh my God, what's sitting here is, if you're looking at the sun, it's the sun that is appearing in this void of awareness. There is no head. What's sitting here is awareness, a void that is, everything appears in it. And to see him actually describe it, and he's got some other great books where where you do literal experiments, like you look down a tube to actually start to recognize this thing that on the one hand is so mundane and obvious, and yet it's like, yes, but look how profound it is. You're missing, we're so used to it that we're not seeing or registering what a profound observation that is. So that was really interesting. So that shifted me, so then lots of stuff is then coming, I guess, learning around those experiences and grounding them so that they can be, done safely and correctly. Because again, this is the materialists, the people that don't do this, they might think this is all bullshit, it's all imagination and make believe. It's like, go and sit and meditate for 3 months in silence, and then tell me, do the work, learn how to do these techniques and train yourself, and then tell me if it's nonsense. Because if, it's a skill. It's like learning to play the guitar or violin. You can't just pick it up and play it. Some very few people can do that. But most of us, it's like really hard work. It takes years and years for us to be able to make nice tunes. And I think there's no difference with this kind of the practical side of embodying. It's technique, it's work, and there's lots of techniques, there's lots of different paths, there's lots of different tools, and we find the ones that work for us. But then, do the work, spend the time spend 5 years, or whatever it is, and then so do the experiment. Be skeptical. Skepticism is really important. I'm skeptical about anything, but don't be everything. Don't be cynical. And it's like, well, have you tried it? Yeah. And if you haven't, then have a bit of humility. Maybe you're wrong. So this is the thing I love about this stuff, is that for me, it's real, and it's like how to make it real and realize it. It's bloody amazing. It feels wonderful, makes your life easier. It's still, we got the tools to deal with the real challenges of life, which is everything from birth to death. It's not that it's all going to be nice and safe. It's like, no, it's not. But you've got the tools and the ability to confront and integrate and deal with everything that can get thrown at you, that life will throw at us. So not to be afraid of our emotions, the deep emotions, the primal emotions, to actually have a relationship with them, and how wonderful they are, that they're part of us. They need to be integrated. We need to have a relationship to those parts of ourselves that's healthy, and this world of spirit, whatever that is, because it's real. You can connect to it directly. It's available to anyone and everyone. It's not fantasy. It's not imagination. And there isn't anything better. But it's one of these things. It's like no one's interested. I say to my mate, some of the most profound experiences I've had have been silent meditation retreats, beyond anything, beyond another experience, beyond anything. Just no words. And it's like, it only took 6 days of sitting quietly, and it's like, and I'll tell people, and it's like no one's interested, but there's something wonderful about that too. It's like that people don't give a shit.
It's the world's best kept secret.
Why should they? And why should they give a shit? And that's perfect. There's something wonderful about it. There's something perfect. It's not. But it's just So for me, it's not that people should do this. It's just it's real. There is possibility, there's opportunity to include it. Again, talk about cultivation. We want to have all these different aspects of our life. Just our home life, our work life, and the day-to-day stuff, and be really good. Get better and better at that. Be better at doing accounts. Because that makes life better. So you've got the kind of a little bit of space for this kind of stuff, for what is our potential, what if this stuff's actually real. That ties in. It ties in a little bit with that question you asked about the different run, doing several people at once and one-to-one, this kind of intensity. Is I realize, on sort of advertising and leaflets, if you're saying, this will transform your life, it's like, well, maybe most people don't want to transform their life. They're just like a little bit of positive change. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And it's like,
it's so unique in a weird way, because when we were talking about meditation, sometimes you don't know. It's the fear of the unknown, as you said as well. How much of the unknown can you take? I remember when I first came into your practice, and then we evolved into different places of journey work and breath work. I didn't even know where breath work could take me, right? And that's maybe a discussion for another time altogether. But this deep sense of feeling energy, feeling change in your body, which is inexplicable to a degree based on any standards that you've maybe been exposed to before that point in time. That's quite powerful. But I think we're quite certain, maybe people are very certain about what life is about, what the material world can give you, and all these different things. So I think we're talking about, when you're talking about your formative experience with cannabis, maybe, or the headless experience. You're talking about a point in time where you just got a portal into openness. And I think that's what I experienced in session with you too. You gave me a portal into opening my mind to a whole new sphere with breath work. That said, and I'm aware that was a bit of a monologue, like, have you actually done a 3-month silent retreat?
No, I haven't. I'm maybe one day I'd like to do that, so in the future, maybe when I'm in my 60s or 70s, I would, I'd love to do that. It's just such, again, it sounds, actually, I had a lot of fear before doing the first silent meditation retreat. I've been doing the Vipassana meditation for quite a while, and it's like, I want to do this. I remember actually, again, this lots of fear. And again, I was surprised how strong the fear was when I actually came to doing it. It's like, am I going to go crazy? What's it going to be like? Lots of quite strong stuff that trying to dissuade me from doing it. And again, that was sort of just stepping into it and trusting it. And then it's like, my God, and what an experience to give yourself, even if it's just once in your life, to have a week of silence and to focus the mind and just to be with yourself. It's incredible. It's not easy. It isn't. And people shouldn't just go and do silent meditation retreats without preparing themselves and learning, being able to do 1-day retreats and learning the techniques and stuff first. It's, I think it's something people should put on their bucket list. It's like, just do one silent meditation retreat in your life, because most people will never do it. They'll never do it their whole life. They'll never do it. They'll never know what can happen when you do that kind of, you give yourself that time and space just to be and to unwind and just to look in.
So then on that note, to maybe end the podcast recording, thanks again for taking this time. It's, as I said, been invaluable.
Pleasure.
If people wanted to explore the perspective that you just sort of outlined around meditation, if they wanted to start off with meditation, what's the easiest way to learn to flex that muscle? What would you recommend?
I'd just jump straight to the breath.
Okay.
The breath is the big shortcut to everything. When I meditate now, I don't do insights or mindfulness. I just breathe. I just do my breathing, circular breathing. Breath is, when you're meditating, you're often meditating on the breath, but then having the good breath technique. So the breath system, I've done lots of good ways to breathe. There's lots of different ways to breathe. There's no correct way, and there's maybe no better system. They're just different ones. So the one I know and love, and I haven't tried anything else because it fulfills everything I'm looking for, is transformational breath. So that'd be transformationalbreath.co.uk, or there's a .com. And it's circular breathing. You're breathing for an hour lying down, and you're being facilitated as well. So learning to use the full diaphragmatic breath, and they'll be pressing on different, where the breath isn't going, they'll be pressing, and a lot of them are acupuncture points. So holding those muscles or applying pressure to help to release whatever's being held, the holding. And with that, there's affirmations that go with that holding there. So for instance, on the right side, under the ribs, it might be, it's safe to express my power. It's safe to express my love. It's safe to express myself. It's safe on the left side. It's safe to receive. And that's all over. So there's lots of different points all over the body. So it's done with this kind of, it's very, very embodied, which that's the beauty of it. So that would be the quickest and easiest path for people by far.
Yeah.
Give yourself some breath sessions, and then off you go.
And I'm reflecting on what my point was that needed pressing. I think it was a fear point. I think it was the diaphragm itself. It was like, you're still afraid, Vera. That's what I kept hearing.
Right in the center, below the sternum. It is the fear, one of the fear points, and it's just, well, there's two affirmations there. One is it's safe to feel,
Yeah.
and that means to feel to feel the sensations that happen when we're embodied, like lots of. So there's the emotions, to feel the emotions and really feel them kinesthetically. Then also, sensations, vibrations, numbness, tingling, dizziness, and just to relax into it. And it's like, oh, it's okay. It's just a feeling. It's just, I can breathe. I can relax. It's safe. It's safe to feel fear. And then the other sort of deeper affirmation that goes with just under the sternum is, and what we're doing is really helping that place to relax, to open, to soften. It's the big one. It's safe to surrender. I let go. I let God or the divine, whatever word you want to use for that, but it's like to let it all go.
Yeah.
And that's very difficult to do. Very, very difficult to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of my favorite quote, which is, "If you let go, you let in." And that's precisely what happened. Well, we might end here. Thanks so much for taking the time. It's been amazing.
Absolute pleasure, Vera. Lovely to see you, and congratulations on your Powered by Perspectives. Brilliant.